Hey there everybody, I'm back and I built something else. This is a Snowdog. I'm going to walk you through how I made it and how you can make your own. Let's get into it. So first you're going to need to find yourself a super old snowmobile, blown motor, something that's totally trash. You can find them on Marketplace for pretty cheap. You're going to pick yourself up one of those. I will go ahead and include pictures of this in here. This is a 1973 Arctic Cat Panther 295. Originally came with a rotary motor. However, it didn't come with that engine. It came with like a 440 Rotax, it was in a condition where it's absolutely unusable. And I had plans to build this anyway. Also, to note something very important, when you do buy this snowmobile, you're going to want to look at the track. The track is pretty much the heart and soul of this, and the fact that if you have a bad track, it's not going to work. So like I mentioned earlier, this is a super old sled. This thing's from 73. So that's the track that they used back when they produced snowmobiles. This is what was the best and the greatest at the time. Do I wish I had a more aggressive track? Yes. Is it going to do what I need it to do? Most likely. And you can't buy a different track because this size is exclusive to this sled. So there's no upgrade that I can make on this specific Snowdog in the future. So what you got to do is you got to cut the sides off and the front off. Here you can see the front, how the track is visible. This is where the front of the sled would have been with the engine and the skis. That's going to get sliced off. And if I scooch over just a little bit, you can see right here where that side piece is. Usually this is where the footboard is, but that's going to get sliced down on both sides. And on this side, a little bit extra is left to protect that gearbox that's there. Then you're going to want to go ahead and paint it. You can use any paint you want. I used bed liner for this. This has a slight texture to it. It's weather resistant. It's going to be exactly what I want it to be. Now you're going to want to start doing some planning. You got to think about different things that you're going to want on this, whether it's like a headlight, heated grips, electrical, storage options, what you're going to use it for, how many sleds you plan on pulling, etc., etc. These are things that you need to consider at this stage after you've painted it, because this is where we're going to start to build off of this sled and make it into exactly what you want it to be. And I will also note that you're going to want to remove any of the suspension that's in here. So it's not very pretty, but that end got welded and the front end where it touches got welded as well. You weld this up because when you turn these, you have to lean them in the snow, and as you lean them, the suspension is going to take up a lot of your input, and it's going to be really hard to control it in comparison to if you weld it solid. So now that you've sorted that out and it's painted, now we're going to start thinking about the frame. Here's the frame that we're using. As you can see, I have this steel 1-inch tubing that runs all the way along the tunnel of the sled. It goes up to the front. This front area where that front sprocket is bolted in is actually made of steel, but the rest of it is aluminum. So this will have to be bolted down. As you can see, I have bolts up here and there's 2 up front as well. You can make this rear section however you want it to be, because this is where your storage is going to happen. This is anything, like if you're going to take this ice fishing, for example, like a lot of people do, you can stick a bucket in there, you can do whatever you want. Just make sure that when you shape this, it's what you want it to be. It's meant to hold things and carry things. And when you're mounting that frame, when you bolt it down, because the track is there, unless you're removing the track from the entire thing, it's almost impossible to get those bolts through with a nut on the other side. So to make your life easier, you can pick up one of these tools. This one's from Harbor Freight, for example. This is just a rivet nut setter. And this is what a rivet nut looks like if you have not heard of them before. So all it is just a threaded insert. And what happens is you'll take the tool, you'll put the rivet nut on top of it, and you'll screw it down, and then you'll squeeze the levers together. And this part that has splines on it will go ahead and shrink up, and it will bite into the material that's there, just giving you a place where you can then put anything that's threaded in. And as far as the handlebars go, all it is square tubing that is welded into the shape that you can see. So it's 2 long strips, and then the top piece was cut, bent, and welded into place, just so that the handlebars had a little bit of relief away from the top section of that box. And the handlebars are actually from a chopper that my friend is building, and he just didn't want them, and they're steel, so they got welded directly onto the square tubing. The only thing that holds that hood down are these two wing nuts, just one on each side. As with most of the builds that you'll see, this is just a Predator 212. On the frame, you're going to go ahead and weld up the engine mount, so that's going to be square onto the frame. Then you're going to run your 30 series torque converter to the sprocket, and then from the sprocket it goes down to the original gearbox that was in the sled. The original gearbox is like, I think it's like 30 or 36 to 1, so it's quite a reduction. And even then, on the torque converter, I believe it's a 10 tooth if I'm not mistaken, and this is a 36 tooth that I picked up that fits that 3/4 shaft that was already on the snowmobile. So this thing does about somewhere between 8 and 10 miles an hour, but it has a ton of torque. So when the deep snow comes, or if you're hauling a lot of things, it's gonna have the horsepower to get you there. And this hood is really just made out of sheet metal. It's actually like super thin, like cheap sheet metal. It's nothing crazy, it's just enough to keep the snow off of it. There's a lot of different ways that you can go about cutting that and shaping it. Use one of those like contour gauge tools. That will make your life a lot easier for being able to trace around everything and make the cuts that you need to make. And I should also note that you don't need to open the hood to start this. I can still reach everything just fine through this little gap. If I wanted to start it right here, I totally could. So the only reason to open that hood is if I'm gonna change the oil, if there's something else that I'm gonna do on the actual Snowdog. Let's go ahead and talk about my least favorite part of any project. It's gonna be electrical. So coming off of the engine, there is a magneto that is on the engine. It is a twin coil, so there's a coil on each side of the crankshaft, so there's two of them, that puts out 3 amps of AC power. Then it comes down and it goes through this rectifier, which makes the AC go to DC. And then so the wires come in, that's those 2 red wires you can see closest to me, and then the black and yellow on the other side. The yellow is your power and the black is your ground. Those go up into the battery, which is that far box. And then from there, everything is run off of that battery. So essentially what we're doing is we're charging the battery, and then the battery is allowing everything else to go back out. You don't need to run a battery on these if you're just going to run a headlight, or for example, if you're just going to run heated grips like I also have, but it's completely up to you. But you need to look into how many watts the rectifier can produce based on the amount of electricity that's going into it. I don't actually know all the fancy terms, but I know that I can't go past what that thing says that it can put out, because then whatever I put in is not going to work. And the shirts are just there to keep the battery from bouncing around, but you have 3 wires primarily. So this is the positive, and I labeled them all as they routed through. So you have 1 for the headlight, 1 for the heated grip, and 1 to charge the battery from the rectifier. On the negative side, again, you have headlight, heated grips, and rectifier. There's also a kill switch that runs from the bars through this box up to the front of the engine that are put into place. And I've also added a spare fuel tank that just lives on the side of this thing, so that way if you take this out for a long ways and you end up running out of gas, at least you have some, because this thing is impossible to move if it's not running. They end up being pretty heavy when you finish them. But all you do is you twist the key, that piece pops out, and then you can go ahead and unscrew this from the mount that's on the side of the snowmobile. You can pick these up on Amazon for like 50, 60 bucks. Highly worth it. And there are also 2 adjuster carriage bolts that adjust the ride height of the bars. So that way, if you're taller or shorter, you can place them at a spot where they're more comfortable. And as you notice, there's also a piece of 1/8 inch steel that's welded to the square tubing. That's because when you go to push down on the bars to get that front end to come up, the square bars would actually just bend. The carriage bolt that's sitting there would really just put a big dent into the square tubing, so that got welded on, and now it acts as a support and helps you put more leverage down on the bars if you need it. And another small detail that's pretty important on these is that I was able to 3D print these little covers that go over the end of the square tubing. This just keeps snow and water out, makes it a sealed system. So starting from left to right, here's the bar setup. So we have the heated grips on the left. You press and hold for 3 seconds. It's really a little bit more than 3 seconds. And then it will illuminate red. I'm not sure if you can see that. Press it again, it'll change to blue, which is your middle temperature. And then you'll press it again, it goes to green, that's your low temperature. Press and hold again for 3 seconds, and it will turn off. Next to that, we got the headlight, just a simple on and off. So on the left, we just got an ATV throttle. So it's just a standard thumb throttle. That's all this really is. And we have the kill switch right here. You could run a tether. A lot of people will run a tether, but I like to run a super strong spring for the return up on the engine side. So I'm not necessarily concerned about this running away. And even then, they go like 10 miles an hour. There's no reason you can't catch this if you do fall off of it and for some reason the throttle decides to stick. I should also mention that this little box on the bars is really just a bunch of connectors that go for the heated grips. They all have their own individual connector, and I didn't want to just leave them out in the open, so I went ahead and put them. That's actually a wall electrical box, but the outside cover is trimmed down, and it is rib nutted up into the bars where it is bolted in. So all the electronics that come off the bars feed through there, and then they go down into the wire loom. The wires that feed into the box have a rubber grommet around them. So it is the wire loom, which is your first line of protection. Then there's a grommet so that the wire loom is tightly fitted into the box. So that way any snow, water, anything's not gonna get in there where the battery is and mess up your electrical system. And the only other thing to mention are just these little rack things. These are actually gun racks for an ATV. What these are supposed to do is, this is a place where you can keep your ice auger or you could keep a snow shovel. So this would just be a good spot to throw that, because you don't necessarily want something that big in the sled with you or have to carry a second sled if you're just going out alone. So that way you can throw it here, you can throw a bucket with all your other stuff in that designated storage area that's already made, and then you're good to go. So enough explaining, let's go ahead and start it and show you how it moves. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this and you can go out and build your own. Sorry I don't have videos of me actually riding this in the snow. It's currently August and we don't have any snow right now. But I do have sleds on the way, and I have the actual hitch that goes onto the sleds that's also on the way. It's not something I decided to build. And then I'll be able to go out and use this on the ice, and hopefully I can come out with a future video showing how this thing actually does in the snow. Take it easy.